great to see you again in the second part of lesson 2. So basically we're still talking about the evolution from the project charter to the activities, and now we're going to look at the WBS. The work breakdown structure basically is an hierarchical overview of the project. It's a very important part of the project, and basically it reduces the complexity of the project by cutting the project into smaller, more manageable pieces. We call this the decomposition of the project. So basically when we are decomposing further and further, we learn more and more about the project itself, and it's related to what we call progressive elaboration. Every step that we do, every level that we decompose the work breakdown structure, we see that we have more information about the project. We understand the project a lot better. At the bottom of the WBS, we find the independent work packages. Work packages are considered to be, in fact, the lowest level of the WBS. Now, in some cases, or in most cases, we will have to decompose further because the work packages themselves, they are like sub-projects related to one team. And in order to be planning everything, we have to decompose them into smaller packages until we reach certain activities. The level of activities is the final element after decomposition. But be aware, when we look at the PMI and the definition of the work package and the WBS, the work package is the lowest element of the work breakdown structure. Let's have a look at an example, and we were talking about a house before. So let's assume that we're going to build a work breakdown structure for a house. We're going to build a house. And in that house, we find, first of all, the different high-level elements, which are the preparation, the design. We're going to tender. We are going to do the construction, and then we are looking at different contracts. Now, the preparation may contain different elements. We have to look at finances. How are we going to finance the project? What are the budgets that we have? We have to look at the location. What are the possible locations that we could consider? Selecting an architect. We may have to find the architect. If we are looking in a company or we are doing it for ourselves, it may be interesting to find a new architect. We have to look at contracts, and we have to look at permissions. So basically here we find already some elements that we have to do during the preparation step of the house. And preparation, design, tender, construction, and contract may be considered parts which are in fact different phases of this project. When we look at the design, we look at the preliminary design, where we are proposing, or where the architect is proposing, different high-level designs for us. And we can also find the final design later on, when the preliminary design has been accepted, and that we have a final ground plan, or we're going to make a final ground plan for the house that we want to build. We also can look at the tendering. We have to write the tender itself. We have to make a document that is ready for sending to different people who may be tendering for the project. We have to select the people. Selecting the contractors is very important. It may be a very important item to select these different people. And of course, at the end, we have to write a contract. Once we select a company to construct a house, we have to find, or we have to have a contract dealing with the technicalities and the legal aspect of the project. When we look at the construction, we can look at different types of work that we're going to do. We can look at earthworks, cleaning the environment, all kinds of everything that has to do with earth, making the garden, things like that, digging holes, foundations, everything related to foundations, the structural aspects of the house, the walls, the roof, elements like that can be part of this. HVAC is the, let's say, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. All the things related to that. We can have multiple subdivisions here. We also can look at the electricity, different elements related to electricity, and other elements that may be very important when we are looking at the construction. At the contract, we can look at the maintenance contracts, electricity contracts, HVAC contracts, contracts for water and sewage, all things that have to be done once you are going to use the house. We can go in further details. There is not a lot of room, but we can look at the preliminary. We can look at some outside view of the house. What would the house be looking like? What would be the inside? Sketches of the inside would be interesting. And of course, we have to make some calculations, preliminary calculations about the cost of the house in these circumstances. When we look at the final design, we look at the plan. The final plans of the house, all the elements including construction, electricity, heating, ventilation, sewage, all these things, utilities. The stability, we have to look at all those elements. What are the elements that we have to calculate, bearers, support elements, things like that. The layout of the house and the environment. What materials are we going to use, the description of those materials, and of course we have to have a complete description of what we are expecting from the result of the house. There is a lot more that we can continue here, and we can see that for certain elements we may already have reached the work package level. For example, HVAC, heating, ventilation, air conditioning. It may be done by the same company or by the same group, but it can also be that there is a specific company only dealing with the heating, another company only dealing with the ventilation, and another company dealing with air conditioning. So it depends a little bit on the elements that we are going to look at. Of course, this is not sufficient enough. We have to go to a deeper level, and then we have to go up to the level of the activities. And when we look at activities, we have to consider that every activity has an activity description sheet. The electricity description sheet is in fact very important because we have to understand that when we look at the activities, we have to link them to the WBS, and we have to create the OBS. What are the links to the organizational breakdown structure, in which organizations are going to do these things? We also have to have a description of the activity. We have to define the deliverables, their completion and success criteria. We have to indicate an owner and team members if we already know them. We look at duration and cost. We look at the planning information like start and finish. We have some assumptions, and of course we can continue with these elements during execution, because then we will have the actual information about time and cost. At the planning stage, we will know how long the activities will take, when they are planned to start and to finish, and basically we have to see that during the execution that we measure the actual time and cost of those activities. So that will be added to the activity description sheet. It's also very important that the activity description sheet contains also the version number, so that we are sure that when we are working on an activity, that we are basically working on the right activity, on the right version, and that we have the correct descriptions of the activity. When we look at the deterministic and adaptive environments, we look at the deterministic environment or the deterministic approach, where we are going, for example, to use the critical path method for scheduling, and all planning is done at the beginning of the project. In the adaptive approach, where we look at an agile scheduling method, we have iterative scheduling with a backlog. So basically, we have a kind of rolling wave approach. We have a backlog, and those items that are in the backlog will be planned for the next iteration, and we have to select what is necessary on the next time. An on-demand schedule is typical for a Kanban system, so we have a different way of applying the lean principles to planning. And of course, this adaptive approach is very flexible because we can plan, we can adjust the work packages and activities to the changing needs. So at every stop, we will be able to see what is necessary and what is not necessary. So basically, this was everything I wanted to say to you in the second part of this presentation. And let's now continue in part 3. Thank you and bye-bye.